Once there was a child living alone in a village. This child was not like the other children in the village. He could talk to and see the shadows. At night, in dark corners between the walls, whispering shadows would tell him stories. These stories sometimes led him to have beautiful dreams, while sometimes they caused terrifying nightmares. One night, while the child was talking to the shadows again, one of them shared a secret with him. The shadow told him that there was a treasure in the depths of an old well that had been closed for years at the edge of the village. However, to reach this treasure, he needed to find someone who could defeat the terrible creature living at the bottom of the well. Despite his fears, the child told the other children in the village the secret. A group of children set out towards the well. When they reached the well, they saw something moving in the darkness. An old rope ladder hanging from the mouth of the well was inviting them into the depths. The children descended into the well one by one. At the bottom of the well, a dark cave system awaited them. Inside the caves, they encountered the terrible creature described by the shadows. The creature was a being with long arms and sharp teeth that emerged from the darkness. The children began to fight the creature. However, the creature caught and took them away one by one. In the end, only one child remained. He made a plan to deceive the creature. He told the creature that the shadows wanted to give it a treasure, but they needed its help to do so. The creature believed the child's words and released the other children it had taken to that place. The children found a treasure in the place where the creature had taken them. However, this treasure was not made of gold and silver, but of strange, dark stones that shone in the darkness. The children took the stones and climbed up. However, when they climbed up, everything in the village had changed. The houses were destroyed, the trees were withered, and dark shadows were roaming everywhere. The children realized that the stones carried a bad power and decided to take them back. When they returned to the well, the creature was waiting for them. The children gave the stones back to the creature and apologized to it. The creature took the stones and disappeared into the darkness. When the children climbed up, everything in the village had returned to normal. However, from that day on, the children could no longer talk to the shadows. The shadows never told them stories again. And the children never shared the secret of the shadows in the well with anyone else. When the children returned to their village, they decided never to share the secret of the well with anyone again. However, the effect of the stones had not completely disappeared. When night came, the children began to go to a dark world, the creature's world, in their dreams. In this world there were labyrinths filled with dark shadows and strange beings, endless tunnels, and dark forests. As days passed, the dreams became more realistic. The children began to learn things and live in the world they saw in their dreams. The things they learned in their dreams were helping them in the real world as well. However, this knowledge came at a price. Every night, they had to go to the creature's world in their dreams and make deals with it. One night, the creature made an offer to one of the children. If the children opened a door to it in the real world, it would give them more power in their dreams. The children accepted the offer and began to make a plan. They gathered under a large tree in the village. By digging the roots of the tree, they buried one of the dark stones there. Influenced by the stone, the tree began to fill with dark energy. The tree slowly began to change, its roots reaching the dark world underground. However, the children had not understood the creature's true intention. The creature was looking for a door to cross into the real world, and the children had opened this door for it. A few days later, strange things began to happen in the village. Animals disappeared, plants withered, and the sky was enveloped in darkness. The children realized that what they had done was wrong and began to look for a way to stop the creature. However, the creature was now very powerful. When it crossed into the real world, it brought a dark army with it. The children came together to protect their village and their families. They went to a library filled with ancient books and wisdom, where they researched how to defeat the creature. Eventually, they found a solution. To send the creature back, they needed to open a door to its world and draw it into its own world. The children confronted the creature with a plan. While fighting the creature's army on one hand, they tried to open a door to draw it into its own world on the other. In the end, they managed to open the door, and the creature retreated back to its own world. However, this victory came at a cost. One of the children was drawn into that world while drawing the creature into its world. As the door closed, the other children saw his smiling face. He had sacrificed himself to defeat the creature. The children saved their village, but nothing could be the same again. They would always remember their lost friend and would never forget that they were living thanks to his sacrifice. Life in the village was slowly beginning to return to normal. However, the children couldn't forget their lost friend. Each of them remembered his sacrifice and his smile, trying to keep his memory alive. One day, an old sage in the village called the children to him. The sage told the children that there was a way to bring back their lost friend. However, this path carried a great risk. The children had to return to the creature's world and rescue their friend from there. The children gathered once again, preparing for this dangerous mission. The sage gave them an ancient book. This book taught them how to control the doors that opened to the creature's world. After examining the book, the children began to make a plan. One group of children would go to the creature's world to search for their friend, while the other group would keep the door open in the real world and ensure their safe return. At midnight, the children crossed into the creature's world. This world was a dark and eerie place. Shadows awaited them at every corner, strange beings chased them. However, the children were tightly bound to each other and managed to overcome all kinds of dangers together. Days passed, perhaps even weeks. Time worked differently in the creature's world. Eventually, the children found their lost friend. However, he was now very different. The time he had spent in the creature's world had changed him, granting him new abilities. The friends embraced him and decided to return together. However, the creature had not given up on them. The creature attacked them with all its might to stop them. The children tried to defeat the creature by fighting together. In the end, the creature was defeated and the children returned to the real world. However, when they returned, too much time had passed. Their village had changed to the point of being unrecognizable, their families had aged, and their siblings had grown up. With the wisdom and power they brought from the creature's world, the children began to rebuild their village. They bonded even tighter to make up for the lost time. As the years passed, the children grew up and started their own families. However, the wisdom and power they brought from the creature's world continued to make them special. They became leaders, sages, and heroes in their village. And every year, they gathered to commemorate the night they went to that dark world. Together, they remembered their lost and found friend, the adventures they had, and the lessons they learned. And each time, as they looked at the sky, they saw a piece of the creature's world among the stars, a world they once feared, but now respected and understood. As the years passed, the children in the village grew up and had children of their own. However, their connection with the creature's world had not completely severed. Each generation carried more knowledge and power than the one before, and this deeply affected everyone's life in the village. As they grew up, the children, now adults, had gained more control over their connections to the creature's world. They could travel to that world in their dreams, communicate with the beings there, and even learn from them. However, this brought a series of new problems with it. The creature's world was a place with its own rules and dangers. Every night, adults and their children embarked on new adventures in this world, fighting new enemies and gaining new allies. But this world was also a magical place, and the things they learned there were helping them in the real world as well. One day, a group of young people in the village decided to explore the creature's world. These young people wanted to delve into the depths of that world and discover its secrets. However, this was a dangerous mission, as the creature's world was a place filled with unknown and terrifying beings. After making their preparations, the young people transitioned to the creature's world in their dreams. There, they encountered many dangers such as dark forests, deep caves, and high mountains. However, the young people trusted each other and moved together. As days went by, the young people began to uncover the secrets of the creature's world. There they stumbled upon the remnants of an ancient civilization. This civilization had created a dark world ruled by creatures and shadows. The young people began to learn the history of this world and started communicating with the beings there. After a while, the young people found an ally in the creature's world. This ally was a shadow, one of the inhabitants of that world. The shadow taught the young people the secrets of that world and showed them how to survive in the creature's world. During their time with the shadow, the young people learned that the creature's world was actually a reflection of their own fears and anxieties. That world was a reflection of their inner worlds, and the things they learned there could also help them in the real world. At the end of their time in the creature's world, the young people returned to the real world. However, upon returning, they felt stronger and wiser. The things they learned in the creature's world were guiding them in the real world as well. Throughout their lives in the village, the young people achieved many successes thanks to their connections to the creature's world. The wisdom and power they learned in that world set them apart from other people in their village. And so, as the young people aged, their connections to the creature's world passed on to the next generation. Each generation carried more knowledge and power than the one before, and this deeply affected everyone's life in the village. As the years went by, the people in the village became stronger thanks to their connections to the creature's world. That world was no longer a source of fear for them, but a source of wisdom and power. And each generation, thanks to their connections to the creature's world, had the chance to better understand their inner worlds and be more successful in the real world. Years passed and those brave children had become adults. Some had stayed in their village, while others had moved to different cities. One of them, Albert, had started living in a big city and secured a firm place for himself in the business world. By the time he reached his 40s, he had become a respected and successful businessman. However, Albert had never been able to sever his connection with that dark world inside him. Over time, this connection drew him deeper into a path ruled by darkness and greed. While the wisdom and power he brought from the creature's world gave him an advantage in the business world, it also involved him in nefarious dealings. Albert gradually began to control and manipulate everything around him. Business partners, competitors, even his own family fell under the influence of his dark power. Thanks to the dark arts he learned from the creature's world, Albert could influence everyone around him, controlling their thoughts and actions. But this power came at a cost. Albert was enveloped in darkness a little more with each passing day, losing his humanity. What was once an innocent child had now become a ruthless, controlling man. His old friends who stayed in the village watched this transformation from afar, saddened by his descent into this dark path. They too were sustaining their lives with the wisdom and power they learned from the creature's world, but they were using this power in a more positive way. One day, Ilara, one of Albert's childhood friends, decided to reach out to him. Ilara could see the darkness within Albert, and knew there was a chance for him to turn away from this path. Ilara reached out to Albert, and reminded him of the old days, the adventures they had shared. As Albert listened to Ilara's words, he remembered the innocent child within, that pure and clean soul. Ilara explained to Albert that the creature's world was actually built on a balance, where darkness and light needed to coexist. Albert slowly began to realize this balance. As days went by, Albert began to learn to control the darkness within him. He no longer rejected the darkness but lived in harmony with it. When Albert found the balance between darkness and light, he attained true peace. Albert started using his position in the business world to help the people around him, to give them positive energy. He was no longer a manipulator but had become an angel of kindness. Years later, Albert and Ilara reunited in their village. Together, they reminisced about their adventures in the creature's world, the lessons they had learned. And together, they decided to use the wisdom and power they brought from that dark world to make their world a better place. Albert and Elara reunited with their other childhood friends in their village. Each of them had followed different paths and experienced different things over the years. However, they all had made significant changes in their lives with the wisdom and power they brought from the creature's world. When they came together, they reminisced about the old days and remembered the adventures they had shared. But this time, they did not just reminisce about the past. They also began to make plans for the future. Albert decided to invest in their village using his connections in the business world. Elara and the other friends also started working to make their village a better place, utilizing their expertise in their respective fields. Together, they renovated the schools in their village, created new job opportunities, and developed projects to ensure a better quality of life for everyone in the village. The village gradually entered a period of revival, new businesses opened, the level of education rose, and living conditions improved for everyone in the village. Albert and his friends worked to improve the lives of everyone in their village with the wisdom and power they brought from the creature's world. They realized that the dark world they once feared was actually a teacher, providing them with valuable lessons. However, not everything went so perfectly. The creature's world still posed a threat. Albert and his friends knew the dangers of that world and were determined to do everything to protect their village. One day, an unexpected visitor came to the village. This visitor was a being who had managed to escape from the creature's world. The being came to the village peacefully, seeking refuge. Albert and his friends spoke with the being to understand its intentions. The being explained that a war was about to start in the creature's world, forcing many beings to flee that world. Albert and his friends pondered what to do in this situation. In the end, they made a decision. They granted the being the right to take refuge in their village, but with one condition: the being must not harm their village and must adapt to the life in the village. The being accepted this condition and settled in the village. Over time, the being became friends with the other people in the village and adapted to life there. Albert and his friends knew that this event was just the beginning. Their connection to the creature's world would drag them into new adventures, new dangers. However, they knew that together, they could overcome any danger. As Albert and his friends implemented innovations in their village, the entity from the creature's world revealed its name to be Seraph. Seraph began to contribute to agriculture, art, and education in the village with the knowledge it brought from its own world. Under Seraph's guidance, the villagers started to grow plants never seen before and create magical melodies. However, one day dark news reached the village. Other entities from the creature's world had begun to invade nearby cities. Albert and his friends gathered to protect their village and rescue the neighboring cities. They decided to formulate a plan. Albert leveraged his connections in the business world to communicate with influential individuals in the nearby cities. Elara, on the other hand, trained the young people in the village to form a defense unit. The other friends also organized resistance by contributing in their areas of expertise. Seraph explained the secrets of the creature's world to Albert and his friends. This world was a place shaped by their own thoughts and fears. Seraph taught them how to fight against their enemies and how to defeat them. After the resistance forces completed their preparations to fight against the creatures, they headed towards the nearby cities. Along the way, they encountered many dangers and surprises. Some creatures did not want to harm humans, they just wanted to live in their own world. Albert and his friends made agreements with these creatures, granting them the right to live in their village. However, other creatures were hostile and attacked humans. Albert and his friends were forced to fight these creatures. During the battles, they faced deadly dangers many times. But together, trusting and protecting each other, they overcame all dangers. At the height of the battle, Albert and Elara came face to face with the leader of the creatures. This creature had come from a dark corner of the creature's world and was determined to take over the human world. Albert and Elara decided to talk to the creature leader. They explained that peace was possible between humans and creatures, and that both sides could coexist. Although the creature leader initially opposed this idea, Albert and Ilara's words made him ponder. Eventually, the creature leader decided to stop the war. Albert, Ilara, and their friends forged a peace agreement with the creatures, ensuring that both worlds could live together in peace. Following the declaration of peace, a grand celebration was organized in the village. Humans and creatures came together to celebrate the new beginning. Albert and his friends brought their village and the surrounding cities together with the wisdom and power they brought from the creatures' world, creating a society united in harmony and unity. As the years passed, the village grew and became a city. Seraph's sacrifice had left a deep mark in the hearts of everyone in the city. His death had become a turning point for everyone. They began to set aside their mistrust and fears of each other, starting to seek ways to live together. Albert and Ilara emerged as leaders in this new beginning. They initiated a series of reforms to honor Seraph's memory and maintain peace in the city. They restructured the education system, creating various programs to foster an environment where creatures and humans could live together and learn from each other. Within a few years, the city had transformed completely. The streets had become a place where both creatures and humans lived together, respecting each other. Children grew up listening to the creatures' tales, and the creatures were learning from the wisdom of humans. However, this peaceful period came to an end with the arrival of a foreign envoy one day. The envoy had come from a very distant kingdom, bringing a warning on behalf of other kingdoms concerned about the presence of the creatures in the city. The foreign kingdoms saw the free living of the creatures in the city as a threat, demanding an end to this situation. Albert and Ilara rejected this demand. They argued that the creatures also had rights and that the peace in the city could serve as an example. However, the foreign kingdoms did not accept this response. After a while, the brink of a great war was reached due to the presence of the creatures in the city. Albert, Ilara, and their friends began preparations to defend their city. Everyone in the city, including the creatures, volunteered to fight. Together, they formed a large army to protect their city. When the day of the battle arrived, a large army gathered in front of the city walls. The armies of the foreign kingdoms had besieged the city, preparing to attack. Albert and Ilara stood on the city walls, leading their forces. When the battle began, both sides suffered heavy losses. The city walls were shaking under the attacks of the enemy armies. However, everyone in the city was fighting shoulder to shoulder, protecting each other. At the most critical moment of the battle, a great light appeared in the sky. This light gradually grew and eventually, the spirit of Seraph emerged. Seraph was visible to everyone in the city. His light was illuminating the battlefield. At the most critical moment of the battle, a great light appeared in the sky. This light gradually grew and eventually, the spirit of Seraph emerged. Seraph was visible to everyone in the city. His light was illuminating the battlefield. However, this time, instead of bringing peace, Seraph's spirit issued a warning. From the sky, he shouted that both sides had been blinded by their own fears and hatreds, and that this war would only lead to more destruction. These words from Seraph only intensified the violence of the war, as everyone was forced to confront their own fears. On the battlefield, humans and creatures engaged in a relentless struggle against each other. Albert and Ilara believed the appearance of Seraph's spirit was a sign and tried to stop everyone, but no one was in a state to hear them. Everyone was fighting their own inner darkness, and it had manifested into a physical battle. As the intensity of the war increased, buildings in the city started to collapse, and the streets began to fill with blood. Albert and Ilara lost each other, each engaged in their own battle. Albert sustained a severe injury while trying to protect an old friend from the creatures. Ilara, on the other hand, found herself in the middle of enemy lines while trying to stop a group of humans from attacking the creatures. In the midst of the war, there came a moment when everyone stopped. A silence enveloped the battlefield. Seraph's spirit appeared again, but this time he was not alone. Beside him were the spirits of other creatures and humans who had lived in the city. They showed the living the futility of this war, the destructive consequences of their hatred for each other. The emergence of these spirits caused an awakening for everyone fighting. Humans and creatures realized the crimes they had committed against each other, understanding how wrong their path had been. However, this realization came too late. The city had turned into ruins, many humans and creatures had lost their lives. Albert and Elara found each other in a wounded state, both watching the destruction brought by the war with tears in their eyes. As days passed, the survivors slowly began to rebuild the city. But this time, instead of finding a way to live together, both groups chose their own paths. Humans and creatures had become estranged, losing their trust in each other. In the midst of this destruction, Albert and Elara cried, holding each other. They had once believed that living together was possible, but now this dream had turned into a terrible reality. As years passed, the city was slowly rebuilt, but the unity and harmony that once existed were gone. Humans and creatures kept their distance from each other, harboring deep mistrust towards one another. Albert and Elara spent the rest of their lives trying to pick up the broken pieces of the ideals they once believed in. They tried to find a way to live together, to rebuild trust in each other, but this would be a much harder, much longer journey. During those dark days when the city was slowly being rebuilt, Albert felt a great void within him. The experiences he and Elara had gone through, the sights they had seen, and the losses they had endured had left deep scars in his soul. However, somewhere inside him, a spark of hope still flickered. Albert spent his days helping to rebuild the city. He tried to be a bridge between the creatures and humans, working to bring them together. But this was not an easy task. Both sides harbored great distrust and fear towards each other. One day, as Albert was wandering through the ruins of the city, he encountered a small creature. This creature had lost its family during the war and was left alone. Albert decided to approach the creature and offer his help. Albert took the creature home and provided it with a shelter. He taught the creature how to behave towards other humans and creatures in the city. Albert took great care in educating the creature, teaching it to read and write, and reading books with it. Over time, the creature began to trust Albert. Through Albert's guidance, it learned to forge friendships with other humans and creatures in the city. Albert and the creature developed a father-son-like bond with each other. During the time he spent with the creature, Albert saw that coexistence was still possible. Seeing the friendships the creature built with other humans and creatures in the city reignited the spark of hope within him. As the years passed, Albert and the creature began to serve as an example for other humans and creatures in the city. Their friendship showed that it was possible to live together, that they could build a life together through respect and understanding. As Albert aged, the creature grew and began to forge its own path. Thanks to what Albert taught, it became a peace ambassador among the other creatures and humans in the city. One day, Albert lay down on his bed, exhausted from the tolls of aging. He gave the creature a task, to continue to be a bridge between humans and creatures, to maintain the peace in the city. The creature promised to fulfill Albert's last wish. It stood by Albert, accompanying him in his final moments. Albert smiled at the creature and closed his eyes one last time. After Albert's death, the creature was determined to carry on his legacy. It began working as a peace ambassador between the other humans and creatures in the city. Through what Albert taught, the creature tried to show everyone that it was possible to live together, to build a life together through respect and understanding. And so, the teachings of Albert were passed on to new generations through the creature. Thanks to Albert's guidance and love, the creature became a symbol of peace and unity in the city.